Hi everyone, welcome once again to the Self-Knowledge Lectures. Today we are going to study the lecture number 21 of the Phase A of this Self-Knowledge course that we are sharing with you for free every Mondays and Thursdays. And if you haven't joined our groups, our WhatsApp or Telegram groups, here in the description of this video, you can find the link to join our groups and receive these free self-knowledge lectures, complementary material on each of them, and also the guided practices. And today we are going to be studying concentration and relaxation because it is very important in our path towards the awakening of consciousness that we learn to remain in a full state of concentration and in a constant state of relaxation, right? Concentration is nothing more than the ability to focus our consciousness so that it can express itself more clearly in our daily lives. The concentration is actually an inner power, right? It is essential not only for achieving success in the things that we must do in our daily livings, but most importantly, for succeeding in the practices that will allow us to awaken our consciousness, right? We'll discover what true relaxation is, how to apply it effectively, right? And today we're going to be introduced to a specific practice of concentration known as watching and praying. A very, very interesting practice. So let's start today's lecture by asking what really is concentration, right? Actually, the very word concentration tells us that the consciousness is being centered on an action, right? There is a concentration, consciousness centered on an action. And that is because we are concentrated when our full attention is focused, right, on what we are doing. In that state, you can carry out each action consciously, meaning that our consciousness or our conscious part is truly engaged in the activity that we are performing, right? Concentration is nothing more than a powerful force. It is what allows us to succeed in whatever we want to do. When we lack concentration, you can see that mistakes become frequent, right? And things often don't turn out the way we intend them to do. Is also the lack of concentration the main reason why we feel like there isn't enough time to complete our daily tasks, right? Because distraction wastes a significant amount of time of our daily lives. And moreover, distraction can cause accidents. And it is often distraction the reason why important practices like meditation, like astral projection, or like, for example, sexual transmutation fall to produce the results we intend them to produce, right? So we must begin by understanding that as long as we remain distracted, our consciousness cannot express itself within us because concentration belongs to consciousness while distraction comes from the ego. So if we actually want to awaken our consciousness, we must work, we must fight to develop a concentration because we've spent most of our lives being distracted. True concentration often feel like dull, or tedious. That is or the reason of this is because the ego resists concentration, right? Concentration brings us into the present moment, into the here and now. And in that moment, only the consciousness can act. The ego loses its ground in us. That is why when we try to start developing concentration, we feel like anxiety, right? We feel like that we must do a battle to remain concentrated, and it is because our whole ego wants us to keep us distracted. So if we take the time, if we make the effort to study distraction deeply, we will naturally arrive at concentration, right? By observing the little details those little things that pull us out of the present moment, every psychological element that draws us away from the here and now, and eliminating these distractions, right? We will gradually enter a state of continuous concentration. And it is not only eliminating from our lives the things that distract us, is eliminating the psychological selves that go and lose ourselves, right, in those things, right, that lose the consciousness in several things that are distractions, because our very thoughts are distracting to us, right? Because they come from our ego. The more and more of our consciousness that we rescue with the psychological death will allow us to remain in a state, in a natural state of concentration. Now, we often confuse distraction with concentration. For instance, we may think that we are deeply focused while, for example, playing a video game, right? Or while working on a computer report. But if we observe ourselves honestly in those moments, we likely realize how distracted we really are. In such situations, we tend to forget ourselves completely. We are like flooded with emotions. While doing this, we are with a lot of physical tensions, experiencing a lot of sensation, and having a stream of mechanical thoughts. And that is not true concentration. Right? To be focused on an action, to be really concentrated in something, we first need to be aware, alert, present, right? We must be feeling ourselves inside our body, we must be feeling our life, our heart, right? Feeling like, yeah, the life within us. And from that place of self awareness, we can carry out any action we need to do in a concentrated way, because only when we are fully present we can observe the different elements that try to distract us, right? We must do what we've set out to do, but without letting the ego participate, without letting the mind, drift into thoughts, without letting tensions or emotional reactions to pull us away of that state of concentration. Whether they are pleasant or unpleasant emotions or thoughts, it doesn't matter. If they take us away from the present moment, they actually comes from the ego. And most importantly, we must learn to silence the constant inner chatter that fills the mind and that distracts us, right? In that way, we can remain concentrated. In that state of inner stillness, in the full presence, we can perform any activity, any task with real concentration, and we can achieve success in that we are doing. So how can we achieve true concentration? To reach a state of concentration, we must make conscious efforts to first observe ourselves at all times, detecting and eliminating with the psychological death anything that tries to pull us into distraction, right? For anything, for any task that we take on, we should strive to maintain a single focused thought, concentrating fully on what we are doing without allowing the mind to wander, without allowing the mind to drift into unrelated thoughts. Yeah. And at the same time, all our energy centers must be working together like in harmony, fully aligned with the action that we are doing. The emotional center should be generating the appropriate mood, right? The fire to carry out that activity. This means that we must not allow our emotions to wander into worries, into fears, into likes, into dislikes, right? We must keep the emotional energy calm and directed towards what we are doing. Our motor center, that is the one that allow us to do right and to talk, must remain focused solely on the action that we are performing without jumping, impulsively from one activity to another, without doing this thing and at the same time taking the cell phone to check on the notifications, or be there writing something that is unrelated to what we are doing, or drawing what we are trying to focus on another thing. So the motor center must be also focused, right? And if we hold ourselves in that state of presence, right, in inner control, then our instinctive center will begin to perceive like the deeper meaning behind what we are doing. And from there, inspiration will arise from our higher emotional center, and we will begin like to enjoy, right, the activity or the practice we are engaged in, even though we are doing something like that we commonly do, or something that we don't really like to do. If we are present doing that, you receive the inspiration, and you really start enjoying living what you are doing. And also, we are going to success to be successful in what we are doing, because our sexual center will contribute its creative capacity, and the wisdom of our consciousness will be flowing through the intellectual center to our hearts, and we will begin to manifest what we are doing in a perfect way. That is the way to be concentrated. It can at first seem something difficult to make that all the energy centers work in unison, doing something. But actually, when we practice it, it's totally simple, because the things from consciousness are really simple. It's just be there, present, maintaining every one of our functions focused on what we're doing, and then magical things will start happening like naturally, right? And we are going to succeed, because consciousness knows everything and does everything perfectly. That is the magic of consciousness. And our task is to discover the joy of being present, of being focused, yeah, of being awake, and allowing our consciousness to guide every action that we take. And well, to achieve this, we must wage a battle. Yeah, against the psychological defects that distract us and that keep us in that state of like sleep. We must call upon our own particular divine mother from moment to moment, and be asking her to disintegrate every defect that try to pull us into distraction. And well, there are two types of concentration. One is directed toward the inner world, and the other towards the external world. But both of them are essential. However, in order to act with true concentration in the external world, we must first learn to sustain inner concentration, right? We must develop that ability to remain present in self-remembering, keeping like our consciousness awake, and avoiding, of course, that mental wandering. This means learning to remember ourselves at all times. Because just as it is important to be concentrated in our daily tasks, to avoid mistakes, to prevent accidents, and to succeed in what we do, it is equally vital to develop concentration for our esoteric practices. And for both things, we need to learn to be concentrated in our inner world, and from there to be concentrated in the practice that we are performing in the external world. For example, practices such as meditation, as astral projection, retrospection, or practices such as the negotiation of karma, the supersexuality, all of them require deep inner focus in order to yield real and transformative results. So it is very important that we practice during the day to be concentrated. Yeah. So that we develop that capacity, so that when we sit down or lay down to perform a practice for the awakening of consciousness, we already have that developed capacity, right, to be concentrated. Now, let's go over a few key points to keep in mind when practicing concentration. First of all, we must make a conscious effort to do one thing at a time, controlling our motor center. Be there doing only one thing. And while you are doing it, keep your mind entirely focused on that task. Don't let the mind wander to anything else, right? And as much as possible, avoid interrupting what you are doing to switch to something else if that is unnecessary, right? Try to stay with the action that you are doing until it is complete, okay? And avoid thinking avoid going to the future, right? Avoid thinking about what you have to do later, because those thoughts pull you out of the present moment and unnecessarily project you into the future. So you lose yourself, you lose the present moment, and you become distracted, right? And likewise, avoid dwelling on things that have already happened, because they drag you into the past and take you away from the here and now, the present moment. Instead, keep your attention fully focused on what you are doing in the present moment. If we apply these techniques to everything that we do throughout the day, we will stay in a state of alertness, in presence. Our consciousness will be able to express itself in each activity, it doesn't matter what. And also, we'll be making great progress in the work of psychological depth and of the balancing of our energy centers. Because if we are present there, totally aware of what we are doing, and consciousness is manifesting, we can be able to discover any psychological defect that is there trying to steal our energies, right? By being present, we will be able to eliminate them, right? And in doing so, we'll be freeing large amount of consciousness, little by little, every single day, right? So we are going to be experiencing the results of the inner work that we are talking about in this lecture. And well, if we take a closer look at the many activities that we carry out during the day, we will surely notice that each of these activities are done mechanically, because while performing them, we are most of the time mentally and emotionally elsewhere, right? Not truly living out the moment, but thinking about something completely different. We wake up in the morning, and immediately we wake up, the non-stop, train of thoughts and emotion begins. And from the very moment that we open our eyes, we are already planning. We are already worrying about things we must do. We are reaching for our phone in search of distraction, right? You see that we brush our teeth, but our mind is already somewhere else. And this continues actually all day long. We are doing things, but our attention is far away. And as a result of this, we carried out actions mechanically, completely distracted. So we don't observe ourselves from moment to moment. And it is actually this lack of concentration the reason why our consciousness still remains asleep, simply because we don't use it, right? We live our lives with a sleeping consciousness. And that is why we are unable to truly discover ourselves, to truly know who we are. And that is why we can't clearly see, or we can even eliminate our psychological defects, because we are constantly distracted. We fail to notice how many psychological defects intervene mechanically in everything we do the whole day. The ego strategy is always the same. It keeps us distracted, endlessly thinking, engaging in a chatter, replaying mental music all day long, or worrying about things that haven't happened. And that way, the ego keeps us distracted from and avoid us to awaken our consciousness. And well, let me tell you that to help us carry out our daily activities with concentration, it is highly recommended to take a few minutes, each day to create a little activity schedule. It is very good, a simple plan, something simple, listing the things that we need to do along with the order or the time at which we will do them. And this practice allows us to avoid having to plan on the go, or to be constantly thinking about what is coming next. Instead, we can focus, you can give our attention to each action that we must do in its proper moment, staying present and focused, And we are going to begin to notice that when we are already organized, we find enough time to accomplish everything that we need to do. And well, it is important that we give priority when we are creating this activity schedule to the things that will awaken our consciousness. Because if we leave those practices until we have the time to, we are always going to give the time to the external things, to the things of the personality, and they are going to end up taking up our whole day. And we are going to be left without time to perform the practices that we must perform to awaken our consciousness, right? And well, when we have this like schedule, we can perform better in concentration. We can stay centered on the thing that we are doing, that and that will allow us to live with awareness. Every action that we must perform. Actually, if we do this, right? If we make this constant effort to be aware the whole day, we will notice a powerful improvement in all our practices aimed at awakening our consciousness, especially in our practices of astral projection, right? Because if we are the whole day practicing concentration, trying to be in self remembering, being conscious while we are in the third dimension. When the night comes and we go to sleep, right? And we are there applying our technique to achieve conscious astral projection. As we are exercising concentration during the day, we are going to be able to be concentrated while practicing, while applying the technique to project ourselves to the astral plane, and we will sit. And even though if we just fall asleep, as we are concentrated during the day, we for by law of correspondences, we are going to remain to be concentrated while we are on the astral plane. So we are going to be able to become aware that we have already left our body in bed and that we are moving in the fifth dimension. So if we are concentrated during the day, we will keep concentrated at night. But if during the day, as every day, we just wander, well, we'll also wander at night. So if we want to sit in astral projection, we must practice concentration. And well, that is concentration. Remember that if you have any question on this topic and on the point of concentration, you can leave your questions there in the comment box. And there we'll be gladly solving any concern, any question that you have. And if you want to, I don't know, to give us your thoughts, your reflections on this, you can also share them with us there in the comment box. Let's talk now a little about relaxation. What is relaxation? Actually, relaxation is the absence of tension, of all tension: physical tension, emotional tension, mental tension, sexual tension. The absence of all tension is what we call relaxation. And that is the natural state of consciousness. Consciousness unfolds more and more effectively as we relax. That is why the ego constantly seeks to keep us in a state of tension, because only through tension can the ego be rooted in the physical body, feeding off our energy. Because when we are tense, what we all the time try to do is to distract ourselves to forget our tensions. And that is wrong, because the best way to approach tension is to find what is this that is making us tense and eliminating that tension from our body, from our emotion, from our mind, from whatever we are feeling this tension, right? And there are many things that cause tensions in us. For example, the desires. All the desires that arise from us from moment to moment carry some tension because they come from the ego. Actually, the ego is desire, right? All the negative emotion that we experience during the day make us tense, right? All these mental, all these mental activity, all the mental chatter, all the psychological songs, right? As we studied in the lecture 18th, the mental repetition of resentments, of self-pity, of complaint also give us tension in a physical way, in a mental tension, of course. All of those mistaken internal emotional states we fall into also produces tension. All those flood of thoughts that overwhelm and pressure the mind give us tension. When we worry about something, we are tense, right? And when we are in that like conflicts between an inner conflict, when we are in a moment of indecision, if we observe ourselves, we are going to discover that we are tense. So we must learn to observe ourselves and to recognize how much of our day we spend in a state of tension. When we become aware of this, we also begin to see how tension harms our body and how tension is constantly depleting our energy. Actually, tension is the reason why we reach the end of the day completely exhausted, because we've carried out many tensions with us from morning to night. And when we go to sleep, we are dead because we've been tense the whole day. So it is very important that we learn to notice when we are tense and that we cultivate the ability to relax. So, how can we relax ourselves? What are the steps to relax? Well, the first step is always self observation, because we can only change what we manage to observe and to understand. Right? So, only when we observe ourselves, we can identify first that we are tense, because sometimes we are tense and we don't even pay attention to it. But if we are self observing, we can discover, right? We are already tense. And by observing ourselves, by judging that tension, we can identify the psychological defect that is causing the tension, right? And the second step is to understand how that defect is unnecessarily draining us, our energy, and causing harm to our body, right? Because when we manage to understand that, then we will naturally recognize the need to eliminate that psychological defect from us, right? And the third step is going to eliminate that, to make that inner plea to our Divine Mother, which is the force of love of our consciousness, to disintegrate that psychological defect that we have discovered. If it is anxiety, we are going to ask our Divine Mother to eliminate the anxiety, whatever that we are feeling. If it is a worry, we are going to ask our Divine Mother to eliminate that worry that we are feeling. If it is, I don't know, loneliness, if it is some sort of lust, a desire, I don't know, to masturbate, a desire to go and do something that we cannot do, anything, whatever we discover is the cause of the tension, we are going to ask our Divine Mother to eliminate that psychological defect and to eliminate all the details of the defect that are manifesting in all our centers and in the area that we are feeling the tension. We can even visualize a fire being directed at that tense area, burning away the tension, the defect that is causing the tension, dissolving, that tension completely, and you're going to experience how immediately you relax, because this is like magical. But it is important to remember that for the Divine Mother to act, we must first understand why we are tense. That is important. We cannot be tense and say, "Oh, my mother, please eliminate this tension," but we have no idea of why we're tense. It doesn't work like that, that way. We must first understand why. We need to observe what is behind the tension, right? It is a discomfort, it is a mental chatter, it's a desire, or something else. And once we discover the cause of the tension, then we ask for its disintegration. And we are going to experience how we are going to free ourselves from that inner disturbance, right? And well, how do we know that when we are truly relaxed? Well, because when we are relaxed, all tensions disappears, our inner state returns to balance, right? We feel well, we feel at ease, and we can easily focus on what we are doing. There we know that we are already relaxed. And well, that is relaxation. Remember that any question on this point, you can leave there down there in the comment box. Now, I'd like to share with you a very important practice that will help you strengthen your ability to concentrate. And this practice is called watching and praying. And this practice can and must be done daily, at least 20 minutes a day, to begin training ourselves to remain both focused and relaxed. Watching means doing everything consciously, right? With awareness and concentration. And praying means asking our Divine Mother to eliminate every psychological defect that arises and interferes with our concentration, right? Praying is that like yearning to be, the practice of self-remembering. And well, you know that Master Jesus taught his disciples to watch and pray, and it is exactly this: is to be watching ourselves, perhaps self-observing, right, and praying our Divine Mother to eliminate our psychological defects. So, what are the steps of this practice? This is a very, very simple practice. First, if you are in an appropriate space, you can begin with the Bellylin and the magic circle that we'll learn in the lecture 7 in order to clean the space where you are of any negative energy that is there and close ourselves so that negative energies do not re-enter, right? And then you make a request for help to your inner father, to your divine mother, asking them to assist you during the practice. And then you begin by relaxing your physical body. You just make sure that every part of the body is comfortable, is at ease, okay? And once you are there comfortable, your body relaxed, you're going to focus your attention towards your heart, listening and observing your inner world. If you want, you can close your eyes and just focus there. You can do that whenever you are. You are, for example, there waiting in a line, I don't know, in bank or in the doctor, whatever, or you take the place in a break on your work or at home. You can do that and just there you relax, ask for assistance to your inner being, and you close your eyes and focus on your inner world just to observe everything that manifests in your inner world, keeping your heart like a treasure, keeping that concentration on your heart like a treasure that you must like save from any psychological defect to take it from you, right? And what you're gonna do, that you are, as you are there observing and listening in your inner world, you're going to notice how many psychological defects are going to be trying to distract you, prompting thoughts, prompting emotions, impulses to move, and so on. And but for each psychological defect that you observe that is trying to take you out of the present moment, or that already took you out from the state of concentration, once you are aware of it and you observe that it is psychological defect, right? You understand it, you ask for that. My mother, eliminate the defect and return to your the focus in your heart, right? And the same, you are going to be there. Anything that tried to distract you, you eliminate it and you return to your heart, to listening and observing your inner world. That way, you are going to be exercising your capacity to remain focused on something, right? To keep your attention in only one thing. And you can repeat this procedure, this practice, anytime that you feel like doing so. And you're going to be there eliminating all the psychological defects until you achieve a stable and clear state of concentration, because that is the aim of this practice. And well, this is the practice. As you can see, it is very simple, yet it's a powerful practice that you can practice anytime. And you're going to begin to notice how your ability to concentrate actually improves. how you can remain more easily in that self remembering process, and how the self observation sharpen as you practice, as you take time to do this practice daily. And well, actually, this is today's topic. I want to thank you all for being here, for be attending these self knowledge lectures, for sharing these lectures with others. And I want to invite you to join us in our next lecture, where we are going to be talking about meditation. In that conference, we are going to understand what meditation truly is, what is it for. We are going to learn to differentiate transcendental meditation from other types of meditation that actually do not lead us to any real change. And we are going to be learning a powerful technique that is reflective meditation, a method that can lead us to profound transformations in both our psychology and in our daily life. So, thank you very much for being here. Remember that if you are not yet part of our WhatsApp or Telegram groups, here in the description of this video, you can find the link to join us and receive the videos and complementary material of each one of these 75 lectures on self knowledge. Well, thank you very much and see you the next time. Bye bye.